Oh, we've got green ticks across the board. That's what we like. Hello and welcome to this week's Tuesday Live and How Change Changes You podcast. Today, I am very excited to be speaking to the beautiful Lorraine McGill. Hello, Lorraine. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm very, very well. I'm a little bit hot. I'm not going to lie. I think we're
my glass is steaming up.
Steaming up, exactly. So I've been super excited to speak to Lorraine today. So anyone who's tuning in on all of the platforms that we're currently live on, like I've mentioned, this is the How Change Changes You podcast. And the whole mission of How Change Changes You, as the title might suggest, is to have us look at change through a different lens. I think we can all agree that change generally is a bit of a scary thing. It's filled full of uncertainty. But the reason why I speak to beautiful people like Lorraine is just to illustrate that actually, with the power of reflection, we can see just how far we've come, what we've achieved. And anyone who's listening that maybe is kind of has this passion project, this creative passion project, or something on the side that you're not currently doing and you're kind of dreaming of doing, then I think you're going to find this conversation particularly interesting. So buckle up and let's begin. So Lorraine, would you like to introduce yourself to the people watching and tell them who you are and what you do?
Yes, certainly. So I'm Lorraine McGill. I'm the founder and main creator at Willow Maine Interior Design and Styling. So I've been in business 6 years in August, which is very exciting. And I do interior design all across the Northeast.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. So we had a conversation earlier on in the week just to obviously discuss your change story that you're going to share with people. Do you want to just maybe do an overview? Because obviously this is really focusing in on career change particularly. But do you want to just take us back to kind of what started your career in your corporate life, and then we'll move into how you transitioned over?
Yeah. So I'll take it a little step back from that, just to kind of explain how my passion for interiors started, just to kind of highlight that. So from a very young age, age 13, I was sharing with you last week that I remember my sister moved out and I got the bigger bedroom. So I was allowed to choose the wallpaper and the curtains and the canopy bed. And, you know, it was really exciting. Then a few years later, when I was 18, parents built a house. And again, I got the lucky opportunity to choose what I was having in my bedroom. I'd never had that before, where I was allowed to choose furniture and things like that. And I just got a real buzz out of it at that age. So jumping forward to kind of my career, I started in the civil service, which was the contributions agency back in the day when I was 17. At Long Benton, which anyone who's in the Northeast will know how big the site is there. I was in the civil service for 12 years. And at the end of the time I was there, I was an admin officer in the pensions department. So we were looking after the winding up of company pension schemes. And at the time, you know, I've been doing it a long time. And at the time, Scottish Widows, obviously a very, very well-known brand, were looking into, well, obviously there was a big review on them selling their personal pensions, and they were looking for people with a pensions background. So they came to the Northeast and they recruited directly from the civil service, which the civil service actually tried to block it because there was that many people going, and also some other similar kind of organisations with pensions side. They recruited some of those, so we went and worked for Scottish Widows, all to do with the review of the pensions. So it was very exciting. It was a great brand to work for, probably the best, I would say. They invested in the people. We got to go up to Edinburgh. There was like for training and everything like that. They really were good employers. So did that for like 2.5 years. Then, unfortunately for us, Lloyd's TSB decided to buy the Scottish Widows portfolio. So we had the option of staying with Scottish Widows, but it would have meant moving up to Edinburgh, which was a lovely idea, but it just wasn't practical. So I transferred over with quite a few of other colleagues to Lloyd's TSB into the contact centre. I was lucky enough to get promoted into a team leader, and it was there that I kind of started learning about sales, because I'd always dealt with admin and like numbers and all that type of stuff. It was the sales side of looking after Lloyd's customers, and then they eventually brought in the sales through service, so trying to sell credit cards and overdrafts. So that's what my team did. So I loved it. I loved coaching people to kind of helping people get promoted themselves, working with customers as well, because I'd jump on the phones and take calls to motivate my team to kind of be able to sell things. So it was a great place. But after a few years there, as some of you might remember, a lot of the contact centres in different industries decided to go abroad, and I decided to get out of there before there was the big rush. I was very lucky. I got a role at Sage. I went in there as a sales manager in the partner channel, which was a great place to work. It was very male dominated, or not dominated, or it was a very male kind of environment, part of the organisation.
Yeah.
But it was great. So I had a sales team there. And then after I had my 2 daughters, I got promoted to the senior sales manager. So I was in charge of for the partner channel all across the UK. I had 3 teams working for me, 3 managers, and a £7.5 million target. So with that came all of the strategy to deliver those numbers, and motivating people, and commissions, all that type of thing. So it was great most of the time. And then after I was there 9 years, we were flying at the time as well, doing really well. I had a great team. People were getting promoted within the team, which was excellent. There was a restructure, and I chose to take my redundancy and left at that time. And then from there, I went to work for one of the partners that were in the UK. They were in the Midlands and looking up to open up a northeast office. So that was very exciting as well. So I set up the office from scratch, and then was managing the team in Nottingham as well, which again was a great time, and that went really well. And then after that, I went in. There was a couple of other companies I worked for, and I ended up working in IT, as sales director, again working with clients all the time. So all the way through my career, I've been dealing with clients and customer relationships, and about building them. And it became more so within the IT sector as well, because I'd be going out and meeting the clients, I'd be bringing the new clients in. So it was a lot of talking to people and listening, which was really good. And I did really enjoy that part of the role. And about probably it was, like I say, 6 years coming up. Had several houses, and this house, we did a lot of even more work on. Every house we've had, we've added to, we've renovated, we've put kitchens in bathrooms, we've knocked out fireplaces, we've found fireplace, all this type of thing. Lots and lots of work on old houses and new. In this one, we've done an awful lot of work, and it kind of inspired us, and because of the feedback that I was getting, I knew that it was I loved doing it. It was always like a hobby, really. But then it started making me think, because people, like friends, were saying, you could do this for a living. And my little thing was, which is kind of a little bit naive, if I could get the house in a magazine, I'd be so, that type of thing. So that was one of the wishes that I had. And my husband was very supportive. But what I did was I started off you know, worked on a couple of projects for people I know, and I did it free to kind of organize my process and make my mistakes, you know, before I went into the big wide world. And they went really, really well. Each project, I'll honestly say, I'll learn every time. There's always something. There might be just little things that make you laugh. I can't think of anything that's, I mean, it's because you're dealing with people's homes, you're always like, you just want to do the best possible job for them. And I get as excited about each project as my clients do. I finished one yesterday and my client was in tears. I was there with her in tears as well at the end of it. So it's like, you do become friends as well with a lot of them. So yes, so I started off by, I got my first paid job through Facebook, which was in Darras Hall. I mean, great place to start with it, the first job. Lovely client. It was several rooms. Obviously, I'm massively underpriced, like ridiculously so. But it went well, and the client was really happy. So that was the first. So what I did was I was doing my full-time job. My employer was aware of it, but it was completely different, so there was no conflict. And I was doing it at night times and then on weekends as well. So I did that for like, I think it was 2 or 3 years, and then lockdown happened and everything changed, as we all know. So I was sitting at this desk a lot. I'm at the bottom of the garden here, but I did a lot of work from here. But what it allowed me to do is kind of to, you know, the business, even though I was working full time, just took off because everybody was sitting in the homes, seeing the things that they didn't like and wanting to change. Yeah. So it really grew through lockdown. And one of my friends who was actually furloughed at the time, which was very annoying, she'd said, you need to drop a day. You need to. And then everyone was saying, if you drop a day, it makes quite a big difference. So what I did was I wasn't taking anything out of the business. So I just, so from that point of view, what I did was I dropped a day, spoke to my boss and dropped a day a week and focused on the business. And then I just topped my salary up from that. And I did that for 2 years. And then 2 years ago in July, so 2 years ago next month, I will have been full-time. So I've been full-time in the business since then. And it was, don't get us wrong, it was scary, but I did it very, very carefully. And I knew that I'd had those funds put aside to support myself, keeping in touch with my accountant and everything like that, understanding what I needed to have. But yes, so I went full-time, stand on my own 2 feet 2 years ago, and so proud that I did it, and pleased, terrified, but pleased. I was.
As you should be, Lorraine. I mean, I know, you know, when we first started talking, you know, before we went live, and you just said, you know, from the other conversation that you had, just actually we've taken time. How often do we do this, to take time and reflect on that journey? We hardly ever do, because we're so busy being busy and on to the next thing, The thing that came up very early on in your story, and thank you for sharing it, would you say that you were creative then in school, or was there ever any thought of pursuing a creative job, or were you always kind of more on the admin side of?
Yeah, it was definitely more like the kind of the detail, but not from a creative side. Outside of work, definitely. So like I said, I was very interested in when we built the house. I was there all the time, kind of watching the process and all that. And that really spurred me on as well. My dream would be to build a house, but my husband's having absolutely none of it. So he's been supportive so far, so I can't really say anything about that. But yeah, but the funny thing is, though, it's like interiors are my like career and like, but it's also my hobby. I read every interior magazine. I watch every interior show. I'm constantly looking at products and things like that. It's just, I love it. I never get bored of it.
I was going to
So,
say you're like a magnet, because I often
uh-huh.
say, energy doesn't lie. I think sometimes, our different modes of thinking, we can be very logical about things, right? Like that plus that equals that. It's logical. It makes sense. And then we've got
Yeah.
this emotional center, but then obviously we've got our intuition. They talk a
Mhm.
lot about, trust your gut. And I think what's
Yeah.
really interesting about your story, Lorraine, is that there was early indication of like you being lit up by the interiors and the creativity and the process of building a house, but almost you're kind of going, well, no, that's for fun, and then I'm going to obviously do the work track, and
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of the changes, because you did go through a lot of change in changing companies. It was, what I also heard was also a lot of things happened that are outside of your control.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's totally
like
yeah.
companies buying other companies
Mhm.
out,
Yeah.
departments coming down. And so it's almost like you got to natural points where you were faced with a crossroads decision.
Mhm.
And then it kind of almost the current of change, if you will, like just pushed you on to, right, well, how am I going to navigate this? What feels like the right next step for you?
Yeah.
And it also sounds like by the time you got to, well, even like, the lockdown situation of you kind of still being kind of very measured, I guess, with the change. You were being very
Yeah.
pragmatic, albeit creative,
Mhm.
but pragmatic. So I don't notice any kind of impulsivity there. Like you were being very measured. Is that
No.
something that is in your character, would you say?
I would, if you'd asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said no. I am quite an impulsive person, but I think with this, I mean, I'm a mother of 2 teenage girls as well. We've got daughters, so it's you can't. I think once you get to this age and you've got kids, it's like and a house, and a husband and everything.
Responsibility.
You've got to be. You can't just. It's not just down to you. It's their lives are changing as well. So there was a lot of conversations about it. And I think one of the things that's actually just come to me when you were talking then was when these changes happened in the various organisations. So, say for example, when Scottish Widows got bought by Lloyd's TSB, it was like that was beyond our control. But I took control by deciding to go to Lloyd's. So
Yeah.
that was then. And then when Lloyd's transferred to Mumbai, I went early. I took control of the situation and got myself out. And the same again happened at the end with Sage. They were going through this big restructure. And for me to take control, that was what I did. So it's kind of, excuse me, taking control of a situation where actually you don't really have control of it, but you can take control for yourself.
I love that. Yeah, no, great example, because I think a lot of the times when we're confronted by a potential change, we have choices, right? We have choices whether we step into, well, this is going to happen. So actually, where's the opportunity for me to kind of take the best option that's going to, open up potential for me versus, oh, well, I'm just going to sit and wait and fear the change. It's almost like the monster at the bottom of the bed. It's kind of almost that denial that it's even happening, as opposed to the stark reality and the radical honesty that you have to be with yourself, that I'm sure sounds like you were, to kind of go, well, this is happening. So what? Now what?
Yeah.
And
I think the one particular time, and probably the worst, which was the Sage one, and I had people working for me and they were all in the same boat. So when I was kind of not sure what I was doing either, it was like, and I was like watching out for them. But once I had taken control of that situation, I was able to just totally focus on them because I knew what was happening. So it made it better from that side of things as well.
Yeah. How did you navigate that uncertainty back then?
In terms of leaving Sage when I left there?
Yeah, because you mentioned that there was a point where obviously your jobs were all at risk.
Yes.
And so when that's obviously your personal situation, but obviously your team as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like that you said like one of the worst times. So that's like a pivotal time of like, oh, things are changing. And it's unsettling. It must feel unsettling.
It was, yeah. I mean, I think that the thing was as well, and I was talking to you about this the other day, I was part of a bigger project for the whole restructure of the area that we worked in, but would suggested that we needed a restructure of people as well, unbeknown to us, that we're doing one alongside it without us realizing. But it was, a lot of it was just about like making sure, like I was sitting down with the team and making sure people were looking at the kind of the options that they had, because a lot of people stayed. There wasn't that many left, actually. There was don't get us wrong, there was quite a chunk, but out of the number of people that I had on my team, it's like 11 years ago now. And some of them are still there and still thriving. So it's worked out great for them, but it was just about helping people make the right decisions for them.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of the time when, as human beings, right, we're faced with uncertainty, that's when our natural negative bias can sway us into fight or flight, worrying, thinking worst case scenario, and that can take us out of more this kind of practical way of thinking. It sounds like, well, from what you shared, you've got control of it. So you're kind of like, right, it's happening. It's going to happen. What can I do? And then you mentioned that once you were sorted, then it was like, right, now my people, helping them.
Yeah, exactly. Because it happened quite quickly as well. And I had a solution to the problem. So it literally happened a day or two after it was announced that we're at risk, that it was sorted. So it was.
So because I've got this image of you obviously going through these changes, and every time it's just this resiliency, that comes up because you've passed through a number of changes, and with every change, much like actually mirrored by what you were saying about every project that you've done in your interior design business, you've learned something. And I think sometimes we forget that every change, it's not happening to us on reflection, it's happening for us. What did all of that change when you look back on that? Oh, well, that happened, then I had to pivot there, then I had to go there, then I took control. And when you look through the lens of like how that helped you become more resilient, how do you look back on that now?
I mean, I would say that through my career, I would say that there's not a position I've been in that I haven't learned a lot, lots of skills, or kind of really kind of filtering down on them as well, like getting really into the detail. So it's all been helpful, and there's elements that I've taken from each area I've been in, and taken on to the next, and then worked on that. And especially like I mentioned before about the people relationship. So not just about like customers or partners that you work with, but the teams, the internal teams that you work with as well. So it's and I've got a lot of great contacts and people I still keep in touch with as well. So all of that really helps. And I mean, even recently, there's a couple of colleagues that I know from the past have been looking for roles, and I've reached out and helped them where I could as well.
Yeah, I love that. What I was just writing down as a note is, it sounds like you have more often than not aligned yourself with what you truly value, and one of those things is connection with people.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's true. And I think it's like, even though I was in quite a sales role, it wasn't hard selling. It was third party, so we were not like heavy salespeople or anything like that. But not that there's anything wrong with us. But what I would say is it's kind of the values that you've got as an individual. It's like one of the main things that I'll honestly say that is one of the values I feel strongest about is about speaking to people how that you want it to be spoken to. Do you know what I mean? It's like whoever it is, and wherever you can, smile at people and be pleasant. I'll totally say this. It's like, this is like what I try to do every day, but when I'm in the car, it's a different situation.
Yeah, there's times and places.
Yes.
We're human as well as like,
Yes.
we were going to be intentional.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what
yeah.
came up to me when you said that though, and I love it because more recently I've been writing about the soft skills or the hard skills that used to kind of get like raised up, and soft skills used to get like, oh, soft skills. They've switched, or they're switching position, and I'm really interested from just how quickly technology and AI is like speeding like through and replacing a lot of the hard skills, if you were.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that I wanted to kind of tap into and get your point of view on, given that you worked so long in a role that was relationship building. For you, looking at that now, and given obviously now in the work that you do, it's still relational, but it's in a creative capacity. How irreplaceable do you feel? It might be a leading question, but what's your take on the importance of connection and relationship building with people? Can that be replaced with AI, do you think?
I mean, I suppose to a certain extent it can, because there's people buy in lots of different ways. So certain people just want to shop online. Other people want the experience. They want to go to a shop. They want to look at things. They want to try them on. So, and there's people, you know, in either camp, and then there's people in the middle, and there's people that never want to shop ever. But there's so from a point of view of like the interior side of things, I would say I mean, not necessarily AI, but I think it will get there if it isn't already. Is you can do like you can buy packages to just have, so you can basically fill in what you want, and then they'll send you kind of a room plan with the different items, and that'll suit some people. Other people might want to just, you know, they kind of want to be guided a little bit more. And the type of clients that I have, I mean, they come from all different walks of life. So I've got lots of doctors and solicitors as clients, but then I've got just like ordinary people who I know as well. It's just, it's a proper mix. And what I would say is a lot of it's to do with time, that they just haven't got time, or the fact that they don't want to deal with trades because they've had their fingers burnt in the past, or they might have made a mistake, you know, with something, and it's just kind of burnt the fingers. So it's like, it helps get them back into it as well. And they really just want somebody to do it. They want to be involved mostly. They want somebody to do it, want the end look, the finished product, but they don't necessarily want to do it themselves.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, it makes sense, right? That you've got, I mean, again, depending on what you're purchasing, but if you are, you know, and I can imagine if you're making a decision based on, you know, your surroundings and what you live in, then I can imagine for myself that you'd want to trust, you're entrusting somebody. So you'd want to kind of get to know them.
Yeah.
So that's something that maybe AI cannot replicate.
Yeah, I think especially for the type of people that I deal with, I think
Oh, has the connection gone? Have I lost you, Lorraine? It's going so well. We might have lost Lorraine. She's frozen, and I don't know whether you can still hear me. Hopefully you can. Oh, is she back? Technology. This is all part of change as well. What's outside and inside our control. We might have to get Lorraine to reboot her system, maybe. Just while we wait for Lorraine to come back on, I think it would be really important to kind of just talk about how you listening navigate change. Are you in a situation where you're not enjoying your job, or you're thinking about navigating a challenge that is facing you? Maybe you have heard that there's a restructure going to happen. I think one of the important things Lorraine pointed out here was to notice what is inside and outside of your control. And many times when change happens, we're confronted by a force, a happening, a situation. But that's not to say that we're powerless to that situation. A lot of the time, it depends what lenses we're looking through, what perspective, what story we're telling ourselves about the particular change, hugely influences then how we navigate that change. Yeah. So the decisions we make, the thoughts we have about the change, that influences how you feel about the change. And then that hugely influences your behavior, the action that you take or don't take. And I think it's really important to say that even though, you know, obviously Lorraine shared there in her situation that each time it was unsettling for her. And I think we're not saying that change isn't unsettling. It is for all of us. But I think there comes a point where we have to kind of find a place of calm so that we can, oh, she's back, so that we can handle change again. I was infilling.
Sorry,
while
where's me?
So I was just saying, whilst you the technology popped on, this is all part of change as well. This is outside of our control, and you can either freeze, pun intended, and you know, and I could be like, oh, I'll just shut it down and everything, or you just roll with it and go, well, let's just see what happens. And that's what we did. So it's all good. Thank you for popping back on.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all good. So just to go back to what you were saying about obviously the relational element of what you do. When lockdown happened, obviously you were presumably working from home as many people were you?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
And so you said that a couple of times, yes, it's been quite a measured approach, given that you had responsibilities, family to look after, etc.
Yeah.
How hard was it for you to really take that next step to then go to drop that day a week? How difficult was that?
I mean, it wasn't something I was thinking about. It was for me, being able to do the interior side was great. It was lovely. I think the thing that I was thinking, if in the future I could drop a day at some point, that's all I really ever expected. I never expected for 1 minute that I'd be full time in the business. And it kind of, it didn't just happen. But dropping a day did help. That I think lockdown definitely had a positive impact. But the dropping the day also allowed me to focus on things a lot more. So, and if lockdown happened, it hadn't happened, I don't know if I probably would have got here, I think.
I think what interests me about your story as well, Lorraine, is that it's almost that, you know, you mentioned it a couple of times, it's just unexpected. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like, oh, well, you know, it was almost like kind of set those little goals of like, oh, I'd love to have my house in a magazine. Oh, well, so it's almost like every step that you took forward was more surprises. So I'm not hearing that like, oh, I had this lofty goal and I was like working towards it, like pushing the boulder up the hill. I'm not getting that from you. I'm getting from you that you enjoyed it, so you just carried on doing it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the whole getting the house in a magazine that happened very early on, which was great, very exciting. And I've been in a couple more since, and just another one last month. It was so it has been exciting, and that's great that people want to read about it as well. So that was lovely. And one of the things that I did, because I grew the business, I set the business up via Instagram initially without, you know, I hadn't registered a company's house or anything at this stage. This was in the March, April time. So everything I did was through Instagram. And so when I did go full time, I did a whole post on it on Instagram And I had loads of questions of people, loads of people saying, oh, I'd love to do something, like not necessarily interiors. There was lots of different things that people wanted to do. So they were asking like how I did it. And they were like seeing that somebody's done it is like, you know, it means that you can, and just the steps you might need to take might be slightly different to what I did. You might get there quicker. It's, you know, it's all just very different depending on your, you know, your commitments and, you know, what it is that you want to do.
Yeah. From that mindset perspective though, like just sitting here talking about that, for people listening going, well, I have a passion project, but I wouldn't dare to dream. Like, what would you say to them?
I'd say, well, I think I would come at it from an emotional side a little bit and just say, imagine if you could do, not even necessarily like full time, if you could just, for, you know, a certain amount of your either your leisure time, or if you have capacity to be able to do this thing that you love doing, how much happier you would be doing that, because it really does. And don't get us wrong, it's like, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. It's like, it can be stressful, but the good times definitely outweigh the tougher times. Fretting over the size of a pelmet or something, for example, or something like that, that can turn out to be so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it's I would definitely, I would think about it carefully, but I would, you know, when you know it's right, then jump in with both feet.
It is a little bit trust your gut though, isn't it? It's to kind of everything's information. And I think that's why, you know, a lot of the people I work with, I talk a lot about the sensing in the body, and not just everything being in the head. I think we can imprison ourselves into here. And I think one of the things you're sharing is by taking little baby steps and daring to dream and kind of going, well, what if? And a lot of the time I've been talking to people recently about this experimental mindset.
Yeah.
That actually, rather than setting a lofty goal and then kind of almost scaring yourself out of taking any steps, right? So you're in that freeze mode of like, oh, it's just too much. Just kind of going, well, what if I did that? What if I tried that? What if this? What if that? And then it's almost like that builds momentum, right?
It does, yeah. And also what I would say as well is, if you're starting a business and, you know, you don't quite know where it's going to go, how far you're going to take it. So what I did from the beginning, when I did started properly, I registered at a company's house. I used software that I used to use in when I worked in business. So I've had Microsoft 365 from the beginning, which is great, because at the end of the day, then if your business does grow and you're employing people, I've talked about this in the past when I've been talking to prospective clients in IT, but it's like, it's setting the foundations to be able to grow your business, and you've got the tools that you can utilize as well. So I would just, if there's things that you use in your workplace that you would find useful in a business sense, then stick with what you know.
From that that's really good advice. So because there's so much newness, isn't there? There's so many new things to learn. I often say to people that starting your own business is like personal development 2.0, because it really does highlight all of your fears. And you must confront them, otherwise you're not going to get very far. But I love
this advice. Although one of the things that I'm terrified of is being on video, and here I am today
doing it.
No, but it's like, so on Instagram, it's like I do like reels and stuff like that. I get grief of like friends for not being on there enough, like show me face on a picture or whatever. But I did do a video styling a console not long ago.
Nice.
And it went down really well, but I've never done one since. I haven't. I need to do something.
Well, I was going to say, but the very fact that you obviously, you know, arranged this conversation, Lorraine, I think is testament to the fact that you see it as an opportunity and a challenge, and kind of going, well, let's just do it. Let's just find out and just step into it, right?
Yeah. And it isn't. It's like, it's nice. It's doing something like this when you're just chatting. It's kind of what we do every day, isn't it? So it's.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, what's the saying? there's a few different kind of quotes that I'm thinking of, but it's almost like nothing is as bad as thinking it's so. Because a lot of the time we tend to project all of this, again, negative bias of like, oh, well, I can't because da 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 da.
Yeah.
When actually, like you've said, your one love is conversation with people.
Yeah.
And that's just what we're doing. We just happen to be sat in front of a couple of cameras.
It's true. And one of the things I think I was saying to you the other day is like when I'm looking at a new project and it might be something that I've never done before, and I look at it and think, I can't do that. And then I think about it a couple of days and go, yes, I can. And I do. And it's, it's like, it's great to do that. And I've got this thing coming up in October where I'm going to be speaking potentially in front of 200 women, which it's a long time since I've spoken for a lot of people. So it's, pushing myself out of my comfort zone, definitely.
Absolutely. But that's where the growth happens, right? We know that's where the uncomfortable feeling, that's what we're designed to do, because otherwise we stagnate. And that's where you start to kind of get resentful and, and not feel like you're alive. There's an element of, and I talk about, emotions are just energy in motion. There's no good or bad. Anxiety and excitement, they're actually just the same frequency. It's just the story we overlay onto them that involves all of this kind of, and to your point, every project that you've then challenged yourself with, you've proven to yourself, you've given evidence to that part of your maybe imposter syndrome, or, because we've all got that.
Absolutely.
Goes, well, no, I can do this actually. Let's find out. Again, we're back to experimental mindset. We're back to the only failure is not trying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time for all of us, and that's why I love talking about change, because everybody can think back over some part of their life where they've overcome a little challenge, and it might be a huge one, it might be a little one, or it might be a collection of little ones. The next question I was going to ask you, because we talked about kind of, I suppose, what you would say to people of what would be on their journey, and we've touched on your resiliency. But when you look back, what has navigating all of this change, what has it strengthened in you, would you say?
I think the faith in myself for a start, like knowing that I can do this. I'm the first person in my family to ever have my own business, so it's and it was one of my family that pointed that out, so that's amazing. I think like the way continue to challenge, it's exactly what you've just said there about, you could say, oh no, I can't do that. And sometimes I do think that, but then I'll give myself a kick. I'm not going to lie that I'm not nervous about this future challenge in October. But it's I'm definitely up for it. But look, I think just learning from every kind of situation, and in a positive way as well, because lots of great things happen too. And I'm excited for the future of the business because that's evolving as well. There's exciting things happening there. So
yes, you've got to update us on that, because that will lead me into my next question.
Okay.
All of these experimental things that you're doing and the resilience of how you've navigated change, and I use that word deliberately because I think, what is it? I mean, I'm coming out with all the analogies and quotes now.
Okay.
I can't help myself. It's part of my vocab. Smooth seas never created skilled sailors. And I think you've got to learn how to ride the waves of life, because if it's still all the time, how would you know? Like, you think about it, it takes away all the adventure of life. You've got to have a bit of challenge, otherwise it's all, yes, plain sailing, but I think plain sailing can become stagnant water, which
exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't want to do the same project day in, day out. It's like, it's great that everyone's got different tastes and, different spaces, and it could be one room, it could be whole houses. It's like, there's loads of change. So I definitely wouldn't want it all to be the same.
Yeah, so it's welcoming that change and actually celebrating the change to kind of go, oh, change means variety.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
so
definitely.
how, saying all of this now then, you know, what you've learned, what's strengthened in you, how has all of this influenced then how you look at the future? And you mentioned there's a few more developments that, again, technically were a bit unexpected, but they've just come up as ideas that you're now moving forward with. So can you talk about?
So so from the business point of view, it's like, so it's continued to expand, especially over the last couple of years since I've been full time. So the kind of the size of the region that I now cover is grown. It's grown even further last week. I'm looking at a potential role in the project in the Lake District. So
wow, okay.
So that's taken us in a different direction. But as part of the like one of the things I was talking about earlier about, you know, reading about interiors and shopping for interiors all the time, even just being on interior websites and looking at items, there's certain things that I love to use. I love candles. I use them in every project. So I was thinking, and it was as part of the NatWest Accelerator that I went on, which I would definitely recommend to anyone who is in business and wants to grow. And as part of that, I was being like challenge of peers, and I decided that I wanted to have my own candles as well. So I've looked into that. That's happened, and I'm looking at a curated range of accessories that they'll go along with the kind of the style that I kind of champion, and be available. So I'll have a shop, like an online shop, which is in the process of being built, and accessories people can buy. So but also I'll be able to utilize them in projects. I won't force them on people, though. It's like, definitely not, but it's nice. So it's going to be, the accessory side is going to be called Willow Maine Loves.
So. Yeah. So it's kind of recommended, kind of, like accessories, like you say. Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. And so with all of this experimentation that you're now doing, and stepping into, how else is that informing how you see the future, how you show up for it?
I mean, it's like I'll watch, you know, there's a few brilliant like designers that have really kind of grown massive. There's a very famous one on Netflix at the minute. I'm always intrigued by what they have to say and do. But ideally, I'd love to have a retail, like a little shop, a little pretty shop somewhere, to have the accessories in. But a big part of that is to encourage people to obviously to come in, but to talk as well and ask questions. Because a lot of the time when I'm speaking to a potential client, I'll get an email and I'll always say, let's have a chat. And they'll always say, I've never used an interior designer before. And the amount of times, it's like there's probably about 5% of the clients that I've worked with have had an interior designer before. So they're all new to it. And it's like, and I think it's just because of I think it's a bit too elitist for them. Well, it's absolutely not. You know, I'm a normal person who likes candles and stuff. But it's it's accessible to everybody, and it's some people are a little bit embarrassed by it, but they soon get over it.
Yeah. So it's that kind of, again, it's back to that relational kind of trust building of guiding them and advising them and reassuring them, it sounds like, as well.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it, the people say it's come up quite a few times when I don't like the footballers' wives type of look. It's not something I would create for you either.
We're not to tackle everything.
No. Well, you can if you want, really.
I mean whatever floats your boat. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. So as you look to the future, it sounds like then that resilience, that, I don't know, I think throughout all of this, Lorraine, what really shines back to me is, and I'm sure it's not all plain sailing like we've said, but there's very much just this relaxed approach of, I'm just going to work with it. Whatever comes, I'll work with it. And then we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. I think more thought is going into the future now. It's like I think I was saying to you the other day, when I was in the corporate world, I had to have a strategy for everything, and there was lots of actions and there was lots of owners and all of that. And it has been very organic, but I think maybe I need to do a little bit of strategizing and have a little bit of that, and I need to bring in the racing models and have a project plan, because they are very good and helpful. So maybe I need a little bit of that now. More for the commercial side.
Yeah, but I mean, I was also something that we talked about last time we spoke was, and anyone listening who is listening to this thinking, there's a number of transferable skills here, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
What have been the main transferable skills that have really helped you?
I think the IT knowledge has definitely helped. And I don't mean working for an IT company. I mean, and that has helped as well, but mainly just working in the organizations I've worked in, where you've had all the kind of the like all the good like software and everything like that. So you know that what's needed, having a good CRM system. And if you haven't got one, you utilize in a spreadsheet or a list with it on. So you've got it somewhere. Then eventually you might move on to that in the future. One of the things I would say is definitely, if you can, get a mentor. I always had one at Sage. I haven't had one since for the last few years, but it is something that I would like to have to kind of help, have somebody else to bounce ideas off as well. So actually that's not totally true, because there is somebody that is very helpful, and her as well.
Well, I will add, because I'm going to do obviously little snapshots of this as well, because I did see that Nikki Kilkenny and lovely Sophie, who you were mentioning.
Yes.
Obviously, the Accelerator Programme, which is where we met, the NatWest Accelerator Programme is an amazing programme that does help entrepreneurs, and it's 6 months. So we'll definitely mention that and give it a bit of a plug, because if somebody is listening and kind of needs that support, doesn't maybe know where to start, and also wants a sense of community. I mean, that was a huge part of it for me, was to meet other business owners, and because I think I speak to a lot of people who, might have friends that are still in total full-time employment, and sometimes, not everybody gets the entrepreneurial life. So it's nice to have that surrounding support network, isn't it, around to tap into.
It is. Yeah,
we'll I think we'll add those links in.
It is definitely, and I think for me, because I'm out a lot of the time at client sites, so I couldn't be in the hub as much as other people, and there was other people similar to me. But I think I found the kind of when I was talking to all the other businesses in the accelerator, but also having that challenge from Sophie, from Nikki, and from other people in the hub as well, and also having people there to be able to ask questions if you didn't know, or I'm thinking this, what do you think of that, and getting feedback on things. Just very, very useful for that. Yeah, definitely.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you, Lorraine, for sharing your change story and just really proving to us all. It's like that lovely reminder, I think, that we all sometimes need when we kind of think that we can't do something, or we kind of start to think, oh, well, wouldn't it be lovely if, it is possible. I think, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And I think you're absolutely right in what you share about challenging yourself on that narrative, to actually, think about just how far you've come. If people want to come and find you, where's the best place?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I mostly live on Instagram, though. I am on Pinterest as well, and Facebook. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'm always kind of open to helping people. Or even if you're just looking for something and you want to know where to find it, I'm happy to help.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure that all of the links are below. And we'll make sure that the information about the accelerator program is on there too. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Lorraine, you stay there. I am going to end the live. Catch you next time on the next episode of How Change Changes You. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
There we go.